how's it going? My name is Daniel Stephen Hill, and I'm here to do my introduction video for my Old Testament class. And just to get a little information out of the way, I am a firefighter for the Warner Robins Fire Department, as well as an ambulance driver for Medics Ambulance Service. And my wife is Kayla Ritchie Hill, and we just had our daughter. Her name is Aurora Lee Hill, and she is actually 1 week old today, so we're pretty excited about being parents and loving it, even the sleepless nights. I work with my church as well to because I want to go into ministry, so I'm trying to learn as much as I can, and I also really enjoy working in different ministries. We work with the high schoolers in our church. But let's start this off. So, hometown, I'm from Bryant, Indiana, and I lived in Americus, Georgia for a good long while after that, and now I've been in Warner Robins for the past 4 years. Some basic family information: my dad was a pastor. My mom works at Regional Eye Center in Americus, Georgia, and I have 3 siblings, one living in Delaware, one living in Americus, and one living in Warner Robins. My favorite Old Testament book. This is extremely difficult, as I've been going through the Old Testament, actually the whole Bible, this past year, and I read through the New Testament, now I'm going through the Old Testament, and almost done, and it's been so good, just going through the first 5 books of the Bible, and then going through some of the minor prophets books, and then going through, which I've been through several of these books before, but it's amazing going through them again. You catch things that you missed, and I would have to say that Job is probably my favorite book, as Job went through something excruciating and difficult, and yet he responded differently, and then it addresses different things that you didn't think about. So I like how it shows the picture in heaven between God and the angels, and then the Satan, the accuser, coming and bringing up Job and saying he only follows you because he's blessed. And then just everything that happened after that. Job loses everything, loses his kids, his livestock, his houses. He only has his wife, and she actually tells him to curse God and die. And the thing that I love is that he didn't. Instead, he praised God. And I love that, because as Christians, we're called. You look at Paul, he tells us to rejoice in Philippians 4:4. Rejoice, again I say rejoice. And this is what Job does in this moment. He's praising God, even though he is going through terrible pain. He's choosing to praise God. And that doesn't last the whole time. His friends come up and they tell him, certainly you did something evil. And they have these big debates back and forth. And then you see Job finally addressing this and defending himself, saying that I am innocent, I've done nothing evil, done nothing wrong. So then they start to debate if God is truly just. And then Job asks God questions, and then God finally answers. And the way God answers is pretty scary. When he first addresses Job, and he says, brace yourself, for I'm about to ask yourself some questions, and you are going to answer like a man. And I can only imagine God coming before me and saying that. Oh man, that'd be terrifying. And then what God goes into, where he starts to describe all of his creation, and basically saying, this is who I am. How can you try to tell me, why do I act the way I do, or why do I perform things the way I do? I mean, it gives us that perspective that God is on a completely different level than us, that we'll never be able to understand the things that God does. So Job is probably one of my favorite books. And one last thing, I like how the book ends, where Job is blessed, but it never specifically says Job is blessed because of this reason, or Job is blessed because he was faithful, or whatever. God just sees fit to bless him, and it's just cool. Just again seeing that character of God, of who he is, and that he doesn't answer or respond how we would think, but then we're not on his level. So that's just my favorite book of the Old Testament. To finish this out, 3 interesting facts about myself. I was a missionary in Taiwan for 8 months. I was supposed to be there 10 months, but I messed up my visa. In fact, I overstayed one day on my visa. When I went to fly to Hong Kong and fly back to fix my visa, they told me I couldn't fly back. And I was actually stuck in the airport for 5 days. And I had to fly out, or I didn't have to fly anywhere. I was stuck in the airport for 5 days. I had to go to the embassy to try to fix everything. I mean, it was a crazy experience, and I completely felt like Tom Hanks from The Terminal. It was pretty crazy, but it was a good experience to learn to fully trust on God. So I loved that, and that actually falls into my next interesting fact, which is I speak a decent amount of Mandarin Chinese, and I've continued to learn because I learned so much while I was over there that I wanted to continue learning it, and actually I would love to become fluent in it one day. And it's a little difficult because not many people around here speak Mandarin Chinese, but I know that if my wife and I pursue missions one day, which is something we're actually praying about, we're looking at actually going and being missionaries in Taiwan when I graduate, that will definitely benefit me if I continually learn this language. So the last thing I would have to say is interesting about myself is I am the seventh generation in my family going into the ministry. I knew my dad was a pastor and I knew my grandpa was one, but having a discussion with my dad one day, he told me that I will actually be the seventh generation going into the ministry. And that's pretty profound to me. I had no idea. And I'm excited to pursue what God's calling me to do. I know God's given me a desire for ministry and missions and proclaiming the gospel and speaking it, and I can't wait to go into it one day. But I'm looking forward to this class. Can't wait to learn as much as I can, and thank you very much.